All right, welcome to Old School. Cenk, Benk was with you guys tonight. Old School is always brought to you by Too Strong Coffee. Is that new handmade mugs made here in America by Progressive, who does great work? Yeah, hello, TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Ben, as always, that was smooth, right?
They're very smooth. I like the way that you cast a shadow over your eyes with the mug. That was good. That's like old school TV, very Cronkite-esque. He was always doing stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, if I had $1 for every time I got compared to Walter Cronkite, I would have $0. Okay, Ben, I gotta, and by the way, shoptyt.com as well. My dad's book, the original Young Turks, on there. I don't know that it's selling like hotcakes, but everybody who reads it goes, "Oh my God, that's really good."
So people who read it, they like hotcakes. So that's what it is.
I see. Okay.
You read the book and you think, you know what? Let's get some hotcakes. Let's get some Johnny cakes.
Johnny cakes, yeah. Why, mister, what do you take my Johnny cakes for? All right, so Ben, I got a lot of fun topics for you today, okay? And I have a present for you, and that's actually my first topic. How should one dude give a present to another dude?
Over a candle at dinner, and it should be wrapped.
I see. Well, the one I got you is wrapped in newspaper.
All right.
So we were on a trip to Wyoming, and I saw something that you might like, and so I bought it for myself. And then when I realized that, I was like, well, maybe I should get Ben something too. Now I was in a bit of a conundrum. Okay, so it's a hat. I'll show it to you. I don't have it on me now, but I'll show it to you next time we're in person. Maybe I'll show it next time on Old School. But it's a baseball cap that I know you would love, right? But since you and I are so similar, I loved it. I bought it, and it's now instantly my new favorite thing. But then I was like, well, I can't get him the same hat. That's not what people do, right? I don't know if we're too old school, but I mean, if we showed up at the same place with the same exact baseball cap, and that's pretty distinctive, it's a bit much, okay?
It's a bit much, but the odds are pretty slim that would happen. And it would be at a place, like if we're going to a place where we're wearing the same hat, like it's so casual. We don't wear hats, in general, like out amongst, I think we're okay. I think we're okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. Yeah. If we'd done this old school episode before, I probably would have bought you the same baseball cap. Instead, now I can't give it away because I'm my mom's son and everything has to be a surprise. So right. I can't tell you what I got instead. But it's not your birthday. It's not Christmas. I don't have an excuse for giving it to you. So what do you do? Is that okay? Just be like, hey.
Yes, it's okay. I think you say, hey, look, I was driving in Wyoming, which I very much want to go to. I've never been to Wyoming or Montana. I'm obsessed with both of them, as you know. And I was like, yeah, I saw this hat. I thought you'd like it. It's fine. It's good. I don't. You've probably forgotten, but I've gotten you 2 T-shirts.
No, I haven't forgotten. And that's, I feel like I owe you a bunch of presents. Because that's not.
That's definitely not how it works.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I hear you. But no, I thought of you because I thought you'd love this cap, and so what?
Very nice. Yeah.
Right, but I then thought like, oh yeah, you gave me a Bruce Springsteen CD back when we did CDs, and so.
I bought you an old school T-shirt that is a great T-shirt, and it was part of our argument about what kind of T-shirt's better. But this T-shirt would sort of be universally recognized as a great T-shirt. We wouldn't argue about it. The problem with the old school T-shirts, they're gray and they come from this restaurant that I don't like anymore. But it just says old school. But like you wash it twice, can't see it. It's gone. I mean, like you have to so it's a little pointless, but it was, I bought 2 of them for myself. They're still good T-shirts, but you can't see, they're just great T-shirts now. But this whole conversation reminds me of a thing that I claimed in a conversation with my wife we talked about last week, but we didn't, I lied. But we've talked about it before, which is whenever if I like had a conversation with our friend Michael, he came by. I've been on my own for a fair amount of this month with my family back east, including right now.
Oh, congrats.
And then so Michael he dropped by and she was like, "Oh my God, how's Michael?" And he's like, "How's his mom? How's Tracy? His girlfriend?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, and she said, "Well, how about how's his brother?" He's like, "I don't know, man. I don't ask ever." Right? I go, I don't, and then she'll say it about Cenk. How's Wendy? I don't know. How's his dad? I don't know. I mean, if you bring it up and say something about your dad, then I'll know. But like, and so I'm like, I don't know. Am I an ass? I don't know how Charlie's wife is. I have no clue. I have no earthly idea. If something important happened, he would probably tell me during the conversation. But I don't think he goes, "Hey man, how's Lee?" Come on. I don't know.
It's a great topic because it goes to how different women communicate with one another as opposed to men communicating with one another, as opposed to men communicating to women. All three are very different, right?
Right. Yeah.
It has to come up in conversation because I think most of the time men do not ask each other, "Oh my God, how's your wife?"
I mean, I suppose if we didn't talk for months, we would, right? What's going on? How are the kids? How's Wendy? Right? Like just like that. Right? Right? So, but that would be about it. And so she pushes a little on it, like, "Why don't you ask about him?" And then the answer is, because I don't really care. Right? I mean, that's the tragic truth about it, right? I mean, I care very much about you or Michael or Charlie or Mark, all these people in our lives, right? And in caring about them, that sort of includes their world. So I care about them, but I don't care how specifically Wendy is today. I don't care. And you know that, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Right.
The only thing you know about my family right now is that my dad's book is selling like hotcakes.
It's selling like hotcakes. And I mean, like if you're God forbid, and if your parents were sick in the hospital, like when then you call and you ask about them, right?
Yeah.
How's it going? You need anything? I got that, But yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing to be like, "Hey, Ben, I just want to update you. My dad's doing great."
Yeah.
Like there was never any problem in the first place. And he's really enjoying Facebook lately. He's getting a lot of videos he likes.
But like, of course, but you tell stories about your dad when they're interesting and they're relevant to your life. And I love hearing them, right? But I would never be like, "Hey, tell me one of your dad's stories. What's he up to?" I don't know. It's just, and I would also proffer to the court that women don't care either. But they have it in them to ask. But I don't think they really care about the answer either.
Yeah, but they're decent enough to ask. I think that's fair.
And being decent enough to ask, that counts for something.
Actually, with my mom, I was talking to her the other day, and she told me that she was talking to one of her old friends, and I said, "Oh, how often do you talk to her?" Because I haven't heard about her in a while, and she's like, "You don't know that I talk to her a lot, like several times a week?" I'm like, "No, I didn't know."
No, I don't.
No.
I don't.
You didn't say, and I didn't ask. Because you have 28 friends, so I'm not going to go through the list every time. Be like, "Okay, how's Yusan? How's Jahide? And how's Nevin?"
It's time for me to speak ill of the dead in this regard, then, because so my mom, at her strongest was, would be there for anybody who needed help, cared about people. She would always ask, "How's Cenk? How's Dan? How's Michael?" Right? She always very interested. Send them my love, right? I'm sure not dissimilar to your mother, right? But my mom also expected me in that way that your mom sort of like, you had no idea how often I speak to Aunt, what was her name? Or her friend, I'm just making up. Yeah, the Aunt Yursa.
I knew you were gonna, it was hopeless when I gave you that hard Turkish name, Yursan. There's 0% chance you do it right.
But what I was imitating, it turns out, was because I'm watching Lilyhammer. A little aside, this is like the first binge show on Netflix.
Yeah, Steve Van Zandt.
Right. And he plays like a version. It's really a continuation. It's what if and they make jokes about it in the second and third season. What if the Sopranos character, what if Silvio went into witness protection and moved to Norway? Like that's essentially what the movie is, what the series is. But so there's half the shows in Norwegian. It's subtitled, but they go back and forth, which I love. I love shows that go back and forth. When Norwegians talk to Norwegians, they speak Norwegian. When Americans talk to Americans, it's English mostly to Norwegians, and then they mix it up sometimes. And so that sounded like a Norwegian name, Ant Yourself.
Okay, yeah. I have many things to say about that.
So my mother, to your point, real quick, would always want me to. And so this one time, I've told this story before, but it's been years. So she calls me one day, I remember where I was in my home, and she says something along the lines of, your Uncle Scott is in a really bad way, he'd really like to hear from you. And our cousin Scott, I think it said. And I go, oh, okay, Mom, I'm sorry, help me out. Who's cousin Scott? And she's like, well, he's your he's your Uncle Kenneth's son by his first marriage. I'm making all this up. I don't know if my Uncle Kenneth was married before. And I would go, yeah, I don't know him. She goes, no, I know you don't know him, in part because you only paid attention to your father's side of the family and never cared about the Jollies. And you're like, what? What just happened here? And I would say and think sometimes if I felt bold enough, Mom, I was a kid. I think it's the parents' job to introduce me to the members of the parents' family. I don't think it's the child's job to reach out. But anyway, whatever. How's Scott? Well, I remember this line. She goes, he's beside himself with grief. And I go, oh, well, all right. What happened? She goes, well, it was over the holidays, and she said Scott and Kathleen and the girls, Mitzi and Greta, were at the parade, the Thanksgiving parade, and they were actually on a float. And Kathleen fell off the float. The float behind her hit her, ran over, and Scott is just in front of the girls, and he's and I'm like. That's horrible. I mean, it's a little funny, but it's horrible. And I just because they were hit by a float, and that's horrible. I'm so sorry, but I don't think he'd like to hear from me. We've never spoken, ever, right? Ever in my whole life, and he's never called me, and I've never called him, and I don't think either. We're probably both, okay with that. And she goes, yeah, but I know he loves old movies. And I'm like, this is like 2006. I've been on at TCM a couple years, and I'm like, Mom, I think it would just, fine, give me his number, whatever, and I'll just get the number, and then that conversation will end, and then I won't call, right? And then Mom continues. She goes, it's just he doesn't know what to do with himself. I mean, the doctor says she might lose the foot, and I go, so she's alive? Right, it just was in my head that you're beside yourself with grief, but she's been killed, right? And she goes, yeah. But I go, so she means she's got an injured foot, and a worst case scenario, gets a prosthetic foot, and then she gets to see her kids graduate from high school and go to college and get married and all these things, but she limps. That's his beside himself with grief. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not calling him. And Mom, that is no one's beside themselves with grief because their partner's foot was badly injured by a Thanksgiving float. But Mom loved despair, and she loved to make you feel like your duty was to call people going through tough times, right? That you had an obligation to reach out to everyone vaguely connected with you if times were tough. But mostly it was Mom reveling in the despair of others.
Yeah, there's an interesting theory on that, which is that that somehow makes people feel better to wallow in other people's despair, which then ironically makes it not such a nice thing, right? And it's probably unfair to folks who are there for people when they're down, which is a great thing to do. which is what your mom did, right? But I read.
It's a balance too. Like, I mean, yes, there are people who are there for people when times are bad, and that's what they do. And then there was just, I don't know if it made mom feel better, because I don't think it made her feel like her problems were better, but it's how she was comfortable, like being around sadness, talking about sadness, the troubles of other people, to the point where she would find trouble when trouble wasn't there. And I got it. Poor Kathleen got hit by a float, and I'm sure her foot hurt. But she would find agony where there often wasn't agony.
Yeah. So did you ever find? First of all, Kathleen's the wife, not the daughter, right?
Yeah, the daughters were Greta and Mitzi.
Yeah, which are obviously out of Lilyhammer and not out of real life.
Right.
But did you ever find out if Kathleen lost a foot?
I don't know whether Kathleen lost the foot. I don't even know how they're related to. I don't have any idea. It was, but that was more than a few times. You have to call this person whom you don't know, and the reason you don't know them is because you're a Mankiewicz and you only cared about the famous half of your family and not the hard working class half of your family, the Jollies. Who mom never introduced me to. Ever.
Yeah.
Or took a trip to California to see ever.
Yeah, it's also a universal thing. Like, not in my case, it's not either side of the family. That's not an issue. But my mom will always be shocked. It's just, the thing I probably say most often when people can't escape their own perspective. So she's like, "You don't know Aliyah Hanum's aunt's son's daughter?"
I do not. Right. That's right. Yeah. No.
Oh my God, I don't even know Aliyah, let alone the aunt, let alone the daughter, let alone the son. I've been to your hometown once when I was 6 years old. Those people all live in your hometown and they've never been outside of your hometown. And if you expected me to remember every single person I met when I was 6 and I had just been circumcised, that is not a likely scenario.
Yeah, it was just this. There was this. It came up every so often. This sort of, and I mean, it would, and the tension level on the phone call would go from 0 to 98 in 17 seconds, and you're like, how do you do this? Why can't you just? Why, I always think, Mom, there's a version of this story that's where you and I are connecting over it. Oh my God, I got to tell you about your cousin, Scott. It's terrible. I hate to, I don't mean to laugh, or I don't mean it's terrible, but she got hit by a float. She might lose her foot. Oh, Jesus, he is. Anyway, and we're like connecting. And then I go, wait a minute, who's Scott? And then she could explain it instead of this moment where you put the other person instantly on the defensive for having done something wrong, for answering the phone and not knowing who you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that was her gift.
I started watching Lilyhammer, and I got through, I think, probably 1.5 or maybe 2 episodes. And this was, I don't know, however many years ago. But what's funny about Netflix is after a while, they give up on you. Where if you were in the middle of watching something, but you've been in the middle of watching it for 5 years, they're like, no, I'm not putting it in recently watching. No, you're just not gonna go back to it. I know you're not gonna go back to it. And I'm not gonna let you tease me anymore. I'm taking Lilyhammer off your list.
If you'd asked me if I'd seen Lilyhammer, I would have said yes, and I thought I watched it all. I know Springsteen guest stars at the end, and I saw a little clip of it, but I clearly stopped watching after we didn't even know how to binge then. It was like 2014, and I don't know why I stopped, because I liked it. It's fun. I mean, it's also the kind of show I crave, in a sense, in that it's not really intense, right? Mm-hmm. It's fun, it's breezy, and you learn a lot about another culture. Like, it's great, and it's an easy watch, and it's fun. But I clearly hadn't even finished season 1, so I've screwed everybody, because it's been 6.5 years, and I went back to rejoin Lilyhammer.
Keep it on my list, but I want it on my list. I want them to remind me. Oh, remember you used to watch Lilyhammer and you didn't finish, but they won't do it. And so, Ben, it's funny you mentioned this series about Norway, because unbelievably, I'm watching a different series about Norway on Netflix. Okay, so since my kids and I are into the Marvel comic universe so much, and we watch all the Marvel movies, on Netflix we saw something that said Ragnarok, and that's related to Thor. And so we started watching it, and then it was like too violent for the kids. But then I got hooked, and I've been watching both seasons. But the reason I got hooked has nothing to do with the story. It's an okay story. It's a mediocre story. It's because they dubbed it. First of all, I haven't watched something dubbed since I used to be in Turkey, and they would dub the English, the American movies into Turkish, which is another hilarious thing you should see at some point. But it's funnier if you speak both languages. It seems more absurd.
I'm sure, yeah.
But I love how they dubbed it, and the people who dubbed it have a Norwegian accent. And this is such an incredibly peculiar thing about myself, or about me. If there is a different language that pronounces names slightly differently, I get hooked on the series and I watch it based on that alone.
Yeah.
So the way they're saying the Norwegian names, I can't get enough of it. Magna, Lauritz, Vitar, Utel Industries.
No,
Utelheim. I'm like, yes, give me to say Utel Industries one more time, please. I'm begging you.
There's a character in Lilyhammer named Jan Johansson, of course. And he appeared to leave the series at the 3rd season. It ends 3rd season. I don't think it should have had a 4th season. I don't think it's going to end. But he appeared to, because he committed a murder and he ran and he went to Iraq. He fled to Iraq, which is funny. And but he's come back, and I'm so relieved because I don't care what he says. Everything he says is funny to me. Everything he says, and I get it. I'm just laughing at his accent. And there's a pathetic nature to the character, and he's constantly laughing when he shouldn't be. But it's good. But exactly how you said, and hearing you say that just makes me I want to hear Jan talk more. Although he changed his name, he converted to Islam in the show. Of course, his Muslim name is Muhammad Ali. So it's funny. It's funny.
It's definitely funny. Yeah. Which leads me to the one other series that I watched was on FX. It was, God, I don't know now, 7 years ago or something. And I only watched it because one of the characters, so it was about a Syrian dictatorship. Russiagate, no, all right. Anyway, and how this,
were you in favor of the Syrian dictatorship? I can't remember. Were you supporting it? What's that?
Right. Yeah. Well, Ben, I'm against the Syrian dictatorship.
I mean, but you wanted American television to come in and cancel the Syrian dictatorship. That's really what you wanted, right?
Yeah. No. I'm against the Syrian dictatorship, but plot twist, I don't want to invade them. Oh, that is an unexpected plot twist. That just my mind can't handle it.
Not what I heard. Okay, go on.
So anyway, one of the brothers stayed in Syria. The other one went and got educated in America, and he comes back. And plot twist there, the one from America is the one that winds up becoming the dictator. Okay, which by the way is not a plot twist because that's basically what happened with Bashar al-Assad. He went to France, came back, and he's the one that wound up taking over for his dad, Hafez al-Assad. And by the way, to be fair to Bashar al-Assad, I mean, I keep calling him a dictator, but I heard award-winning journalists say that he won the election with 95% of the vote. So hello.
Yeah, it just could have been a poorly run opposition campaign.
Oh yeah. Remember when Walter Mondale got killed and got 4% of the vote?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, but likely that's not a dictator. Anyways, back to the fun stuff. I watched the episode and I was like 2-3 seasons just to have the brother who stayed in Syria called the other one Bassam. Now, Bassam. Mind you, I'm from the Middle East. Not only that, my parents' hometown is right on the Syrian border. Okay, but for some reason I couldn't get enough of Bassam.
That's funny.
With Ragnarok, and what's great about it is that they say the names. I don't know if this is a Norwegian thing. They say them over and over and over. Like in a normal hour-and-a-half conversation we'll have on Old School, I don't know how many times I'll call you Ben, and now I'm kind of intrigued. Like I'll try to keep track of it, see if we do it a lot too. But in this show, they can't stop saying each other's names, and every time I'm like, yes. So it'll be like, Magna, you're late for dinner. Lauritz, get your mother Magna. And I'm like, I'm here for it. And then there's one scene where Vidar says, Lauritz, Lauritz, Lauritz. I rewound it 3 times.
Yeah, it's already got 9 Lauritzes. We're not allowed to laugh at people's accents anymore.
Oh,
which is
the Norwegians are so heavily discriminated against. So
right,
I feel
it's like if we found and it's too bad because I don't know, I'm sure it was, but I never was interested in margin. People should laugh at our accents. I mean, accents, it's just funny. The way people say things is funny. I get it. It's been banned from all humor now, but it's funny. And I'm sure to the outside world, we know. You know what's funny? When people from other lands do an American accent and make fun of the way Americans talk. Like I laugh. It's always funny. We must sound like we're all imitating John Wayne to them.
Oh, 100%. When I used to go back to Turkey in the summers, and I would run into French and English tourists and stuff like that, they were always like, "Oh, you're from America." Well, howdy.
Yeah, right. And that's great. Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm actually from New Jersey. That's a completely different accent. And they're like, all right, partner.
Yeah, whatever you say, partner. Yeah.
But look, it's people cannot understand nuance. It drives me nuts, right? So you're allowed to make fun of your own ethnicity. You're allowed to make fun of ethnicities that are not discriminated against. And America is not discriminated against, okay? We are often the discriminators. And so you're allowed to do a Texas accent left and right? And look, I get it. People from the South get offended at Southern accents because the Northerners are kind of dicks to them, and they equate it with being dumb, okay? And so that's why it gets under their skin. But I make fun of the New York accent, the Boston accent, and how badly I do the accents is also part of the fun, right? But people have lost all nuance.
Look, I spent 5 years living in the South. I mean, I'm not counting Miami because that's not the South, that's Florida. Right. Yeah, I get it. They feel talked down to. Some people in the South feel talked down to by Northerners. But I mean, I got news for you: the Northerners, the Southerners they're also not kind to the Northerners. I mean, got news. It's not like they're picked on. They got
yeah.
And by the way, I'm wildly generalizing because I made a gazillion friends there, many of them with Southern accents, and so. But there was, of course, there were plenty. There's a huge chip on the shoulder about, biggest newsroom fight I've ever gotten into wasn't over a story. It was over whether it was acceptable for this Southerner, a native South Carolinian, who called it the War of Northern Aggression, and insisted it wasn't over slavery. And and I was a history major, but I'm not an expert. And but I was not gonna. Like it was like this. That's insane. This is an insane conversation.
Well, yeah, that was a foreshadowing of things to come.
It was. That guy was MAGA in 1994.
Yeah, we were in Charleston a couple of years back. Me and my friends from Jersey, and we very audibly toasted to Northern aggression several times. So we're like, here's the Northern aggression.
If that guy had been in the restaurant, you'd have started a fight. He lifted too. He was thick. He was ready. He was always ready to fight.
I'm thinking a different way. But look, the reason we did that, of course, is because so what if it was Northern aggression? It was Northern aggression to free human beings from the slavery and misery and hellhole you'd put them in. Yeah. So even if it were true, God bless Northern aggression.
Yeah, and by the way, you guys, seceded from the Union. I mean, that was a pretty aggressive move.
Yeah, that was pretty aggressive.
Obvious. Yeah. Anyway, it was a terrible war, and it was a shame that we had to fight it. But.
Yes. Of course, of course. I don't look inside America. You're allowed to do accents. You can make fun of our Jersey accent, our Boston accent. I don't Minnesota accent. Who cares? Come on. How's the goddamn reason? I mean, we talked about this before. But there is this interesting feeling. Like I grew up with tons of immigrant friends, and so a lot of my friends were Indian, but a lot of them were also Asian, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, etc. And for whatever reason, we felt like Indian accent was kosher, and my Indian friends would do it, my non-Indian friends would do it, but nobody thought Chinese accent was or Asian accent was kosher, and we never did it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because Indian kids make fun of their parents more. Like it's
maybe.
Kind of
I also there's I mean I'm guessing wildly, but there was more South Asian, more Indian assimilation. It had also been a British colony, so there's so many Indian Americans who speak. Well, obviously, so many Indians who speak English because they grew up speaking English, right? Whereas you're going to find less Chinese people who grew up speaking English, so their English is frequently an immigrant's English. It's broken English, right? Because they've learned it as an adult, whereas the Indians grew up in most cases speaking English. So then it's just an accent, right? But their English is perfect, right? In fact, they're better than most American-born kids. So I'm wondering that might be part of how it was became acceptable. It seemed like it was in the family. I don't know. You know
what? Or maybe because and there's no way we would have been conscious of this, and that would make it more interesting. That there was not a substantial history of discrimination against South Asians here in America, mainly because there weren't enough South Asians to discriminate against for a long time. Whereas there was a history of significant discrimination against Asians in this country, particularly Chinese.
Yeah, no, that's right. So it might have just seemed safer, easier, like you weren't picking on people.
Yeah, and I think that maybe got into our subconscious because when people do an Asian accent when we were growing up, I don't know that anybody does it anymore, but if anybody did it back then, it was almost always derogatory.
No, that's right, but I mean that comes from the fact that the Indians speak fluent English. They just speak it with an accent that doesn't sound like they're from America. It's no different from the English we speak at all, right? It's not. I mean, it's like it sounds a little bit British too, right? So and that seems fair game. That's obviously fair game.
Yeah, I wonder. Anyways, the one thing I will never give up is my dad's accent. I don't care how politically incorrect it becomes. He's my dad. I get to do it. Okay.
Oh, you definitely get to do it.
And so, anyways, there's.
That said, overall, it's fine. It's not the greatest sacrifice in the world that the days of making fun of the way other people speak is over. That's okay.
It's not the end of the world. We will all definitely survive.
We'll be okay. We'll be okay.
Yes, yeah. And I will continue to say Magna.
Yeah. No, by the way, it's never going to be. It's always going to be okay to make fun of Norwegians. I think we can safely say that.
And originally they were Vikings. If their feelings are hurt by first of all, they could maraud us and go back to the old days. And is that can you say maraud us?
I don't know. I like that. Why not? Yeah. Oh, there's also something about this show too, and I wonder if it's true of what's it called? Thor
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok, right? I wonder if it's true there too. In that the Norwegians seem unoffendable, right? When you try to offend them, they basically think, because they're in general so well adjusted, they think, oh, so sad that you think that's funny.
And they're such like nice sons of bitches. They probably try to help you out of it.
The whole show is about all these things. No matter how awful you've been, they're like, well, we have a service for that, and we'll help, and we'll get you whatever you need. That's right. That's constantly what's going on in the show.
By the way, that is not noted often enough that there are these massive success stories. These guys were literally Vikings, the biggest marauders of their times. They nearly invented rape and pillaging, right? And now they are the nicest country in the world. Like their penal system is so pleasant that people are shocked at like, really? You give like people in your prisons PS3s and they complain that they don't have PS4? Like, are you serious? And you let them out that quickly? But you have less recidivism? It's unbelievable, right? And so it just the transformation of, by the way, Norwegians over a long period of time, the Germans and the Japanese after World War II. Maybe we should every once in a while study things that went really well. Like here are like 3 massive warrior cultures that have turned incredibly peaceful and pleasant. Maybe we should do that again instead of going in the wrong direction.
I don't know.
Or we could invade terrible dictators like Bassam. Because dropping bombs always helps. So, take it out of context. He said it. We're back to this. It was about, it was the mayor of Miami about Cuba. And he's like, the people of Cuba are suffering. That is why they're protesting against the government of the terrible tyrannical government. We should consider bombing them.
Yeah, that's right.
Wait,
I know, and you tweeted about that, and then the response from was, of course, it was always funny. Yeah, that never gets old. It's a good one.
I love that they think that's funny. It becomes ironically funny, but they're like, "Oh yeah, way to be on the right side."
Oh man, this social media thing, man, it's a problem. It's a problem.
But right wingers are unbelievable. Like, who thinks like, the poor people of Cuba are suffering, let's bomb them? To them, somehow that makes sense. That's insanity. All right. Anyways, okay, back to Wyoming. So it is, Ben. You will enjoy it. Unquestionably, I mean, the Grand Tetons are amazing, beautiful, gorgeous. It's America. Yellowstone, Tetons are better than Yellowstone, but Yellowstone's of course amazing. And but what was awesome about Yellowstone was, if you go deep enough into Yellowstone, at first I thought everything's like, they're constantly talking about the elk, the moose, the bears, the bison. It's, you be careful, don't get too close to them and stuff. And for like 6 days, we didn't see any of it. For 5 days, none of it, right? We're like, I get it. It was just all a ruse. It's everything in America is marketing. There are no moose, there are no bears. It's all a lie, right? I got you. And yeah, peace through strength. Got it. Trickle down economics, clever. But finally, on the last day in Yellowstone, if you go deep enough into the park, bison walking on the road towards us, traffic jams in the middle of nowhere because there's bison on the road, and you see a giant bison walking towards you, and gets within a couple of inches of you as he passes by your car. There ain't nothing more American than that, and there's nothing more badass than that. And you see a field of bison out there. You see an elk with these giant antlers, right? And the whole time, and I'm yelling it in the car too, because I'm me. I'm like, and then I started yelling it in public, like, America, Wyoming.
Sure, that was great. Yeah.
So you know what? People enjoy my antics. Okay. Wives like to tell you that people don't enjoy your antics, but they're not paying attention. So we went to go see Old Faithful. So if you haven't been there and you don't know about it, so Old Faithful is one of the geysers at Yellowstone. It's obviously the most most faithful. Well, that's also true. But the most famous one, and that's why people know that name. Almost everybody knows that name. But the reason it's called Old Faithful is because it's the one that erupts regularly, every 90 minutes or so. So the others might erupt, once every 6 hours or once every 6 years. But Old Faithful, he's gonna blow every 90 minutes, okay? And so we go there, and it's a range. It's not strictly 90 minutes. You got a 10-minute range on both sides. But he really stretched it this time, right? And he got past 10 minutes late. And people are getting real antsy, and they're like, and you hear guys saying it in the back, right? Just our luck.
This is
one
the time
we come. Literally Old Faithful doesn't blow, right? So just to kid around, I started bullying Old Faithful, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so I guess you can't blow. Whatever. Now I'm doing it to make the kids laugh, right? And we started creating peer pressure on him to erupt, okay? And Wendy's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm creating pressure so the guys are erupts. Get it?
Peer pressure, right? That's right.
And you know what happened? Everybody around us loved it. And then people started all bullying Old Faithful, right? Like, oh, you don't have it in you.
Maybe you just don't have it anymore. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Hey man, guess your run's over. Yeah.
I guess old more than faithful. Anyway, and what was great is that there was actually a little bit like, you're in Wyoming, but it's obviously mostly tourists. You don't know what part of the country they're from. You don't know what their politics is. But for that, couple of minutes, we all bonded over bullying Old Faithful.
And then there's probably, and when it blew, there was probably like a big round of applause, right?
Oh, are you kidding me? We went nuts when it blew, right?
Yeah.
So when I was going around going, Wyoming, people generally loved it. And you can tell when they don't. We were at a gas station late at night, and I was goofing around with the kids. And there was a woman in running the cash register. And normally women think that's funnier than men do. And especially if you're doing it with the kids, it's endearing and stuff. She was not having any of it. Okay. She was stone cold Wyoming. So I brought it down.
You saw the audience. I think I got it right. Yeah.
So I leaned into her. I was like, "We should bomb Syria, shouldn't we?" Oh, he said it. He said it. Okay. Anyways, so one last thing we got to run, and then we'll do a whole nother 45 minutes for the members. tyt.com/join, or hit the join button below on YouTube. Wyoming is surprisingly purple, and I don't mean as a political statement. The sagebrush is purple. There's tons and tons of purple flowers, and the sunset is shockingly purple almost every night. Okay, and so it's funny. Like, you think of Wyoming, you think of like tan colors, brown colors, the gritty country, etc. And you show up, and it's like, hey, purple, everybody. Right? So, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And it adds to how gorgeous it is. So yeah, Ben, it's a crime you haven't been there. I mean, it is #America.
No, we're going. We're going to, I don't know, Montana. We're going there. We're going to that part of the country. I don't know when, but soon.
All right, so guys, we got to go. So tyt.com/join. Members, we'll see you there in a minute. All right, thanks for watching this free clip of Old School. Don't forget to become a TYT member today for the rest of the show and for more exclusive content throughout the network. Join now at tyt.com/join.